Hey, what is up everyone? Adam here, and today we're going to be going through my first impressions of the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Let's get into it. So Apple officially introduced the iPhone 11 on September 10th. The pre-orders went live on September 13th, and you could pick up your iPhone if you had a pre-order or if you just wanted to go to the store or your carrier on September 20th. And that was actually Friday. So this was the first time I ever pre-ordered an iPhone. In the past, I had lined up outside of AT&T and outside Verizon in order to get the latest iPhone, but this time I just wanted to make my life easy and pre-order it. So pre-orders went live on the East Coast at 8 a.m. I went right onto the app on my iPhone and I pre-ordered myself a 512 gigabyte midnight green iPhone 11 Pro Max. Once the pre-order went through, I got my window, which was 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. I believe I got to choose that window, so I chose 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and all was right in the world. I went to the Apple Store on Friday, September 20th, went right down. I was around 9:45. I was early, punctual, didn't want to miss my window, and they put me right in line with other people who had pre-ordered as well and had the same window. Or some people actually had their 9:30 to 10 a.m. window. So there were a few people ahead of me, a few people behind me. It wasn't too bad. Now, it wasn't too bad at first, because when we got into the 10 to 10:30 window, that was my time slot, other people who had earlier time slots like 9:30 kept showing up and telling the Apple employees, hey, I had a 9:30 window, I know it's 10:15, hey, sorry about that. And they said, oh, no problem. And they just started putting people in front of the line where other people were already in their windows. And to, put it bluntly, people kind of got a little ticked off. Nobody said anything. There's nobody started anything, but it kind of rubbed us the wrong way when we're here on time, we're waiting in line, we're waiting to actually get into the Apple Store, and other people just kind of strolling in late and getting slotted ahead of you. Actually, getting the iPhone itself was easy. I walked right in, showed the ID, showed them the order number. They brought it right back out. They opened the box to make sure everything was good. I gave it like a once-over, if you will. Didn't want to activate it right there. Closed the box and walked right out of the store. Took about 8 to 10 minutes, and life was good. So I really couldn't wait to get home. And I was kind of hungry. So I went to Panera, grabbed some lunch, and I decided to open it up right there. And open it up and started to do the setup process, which was really easy considering the fact that you can now do that wireless transfer between iPhones, which is pretty awesome. Kind of glows with that blue thing. You have to hold your old phone's camera up to the blue sensor, that pattern that's on the screen, and all of a sudden your iPhone starts to set itself up. Connected to Verizon, activated it, easy peasy. Let's talk about the color. I got the midnight green and I absolutely love it. I've been a space gray color from the iPhone perspective forever. I know in the past you didn't really have a choice in colors, but once they started introducing colors, I was always tempted by certain colors like the silver or the white, depending on the model. But in this case, I just wanted the green. It looked very, it was kind of subtle. It looked like, depending on what video you watched prior to actually picking up the phone, that the actual hue would change a little bit. And that's true. It's green in a lot of lights. It's also gray in a lot of lights. And I think overall, that kind of suits me best. So going from the color to the finish now, the finish is a matte glass back on the back of the iPhone 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 itself has a different finish, but this one, which is the one I got, is matte glass, and it is awesome. It's not as slippery as the iPhone XS, which was all glass and really slippery. This matte glass really gives it some texture and allows it some grip on various surfaces like my jeans, for example, as you'll see in this clip. So let's talk about the size of the iPhone 11 Pro Max. I'm actually coming from an iPhone XS, so that's a smaller phone. But I was also using a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, which is quite a bigger phone. And I really love the screen real estate. In the past, I had used the 6 Plus, the 7 Plus, so it wasn't like I wasn't used to a bigger iPhone. But then when the iPhone 10 came out, I went to that, and then I kind of liked having the one-handed ability and the pocket ability. So then I went to the 10s. But once I started using the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, I said my next iPhone has to be a bigger phone. And so I went with the Pro Max, and I couldn't be happier with it. Now the weight itself is a lot heavier, but the weight is also a welcome addition because that means the battery is massively improved. And to me, I need a bigger battery. My 10s was on the charger in and around 2 o'clock every afternoon. This battery, I can't say enough good things about. So sticking with the battery, just to give you an idea of what kind of battery life I've had in the last 24 hours, and again, it's only been, a day plus. I took my iPhone off the charger at around 6 a.m. and right now I have 56% battery left, and it is 4 o'clock. So that is tremendous battery. Moving on, let's talk about the screen. The screen is incredibly bright. It's typical 800 nits, which is super bright. And depending on the HDR content that you're watching in videos, could go as high as 1200 nits in and around that. The text is crisp, which is another reason why I have not been a huge fan of the iPhone 11 and prior to that, the iPhone XR, because I know that the screen resolution is okay, but it's just not what I want out of a smartphone, especially when you're using things like the Galaxy S10 Plus, and that screen is just amazing. And I really did not want to go back towards a lower resolution screen. So that's another reason why I went with the iPhone 11 Pro Max. All right, I'm glad you stuck with me this far because now it's time to talk about the camera, which of course is the star of the show. Night mode is really impressive, as you're going to see from some of these clips comparing it to the S10 Plus and the iPhone XS. The night mode itself is phenomenal and was a huge selling feature for me in terms of upgrading from the XS. It has 3 cameras, as you've probably heard, in its fidget spinner array. They're all 12 megapixel. You have your regular lens, you got your telephoto lens, which can go up to 2 times zoom, and then you have your ultra wide, which is about 120 degree field of view. And the ultra wide camera itself is also something that I was really excited about because I was using, again, an S10 Plus, and that ultra wide just made pictures so much more dynamic. You can get so much more in the screen. It just made for really creative ways where you can use your photography and your creativity to capture more of what you're seeing and the environment around the subject that you're trying to shoot. And it was just a really nice addition when I had it on the S10 Plus, and I did not want to not have it in the next iPhone, so I'm really glad that Apple included it in the 11 and the 11 Pro. Portrait mode looks pretty good. I'd say one of the drawbacks of portrait mode that I've seen so far is that the edge detection is not quite up to the caliber of the Pixel. It's still a little blurry around some of the edges. The quality of the picture itself, you were just looking at it at first glance, is really amazing. The bokeh, I believe, that's how you pronounce it, bokeh effect is really good. It's just if you were to kind of get up into the intricacies of the picture itself, you'd see a little bit blurring around the edge, which isn't great, but overall, it's a great portrait mode camera and get some really great shots that way. And you never know, with computational photography, maybe Apple can update this in future software updates and improve upon that. Now, obviously, there's a lot more testing of the camera that needs to be done. I mean, how many pictures and videos can you take in 24 hours, especially when you got 2 little kids running around? But I will be doing full comparison test over the course of the next couple of days and even couple of weeks, because a full review, I think, requires a little bit of time. But again, stay tuned to the channel for more of those types of camera comparisons and more in-depth on these features. So now let's talk about the speakers, which not a lot of people have said a lot about, but these speakers are really good and they're really loud. I don't know if it's gonna really translate on the camera, but we're gonna give it a try. So, good, right? All right, so that right there is a nice sounding set of speakers. Last but not least, we have iOS 13. On this phone, I think dark mode is done really well, especially how Apple Music looks in dark mode. So I think overall it's a really slick looking package. So I am going to just be using dark mode from now on. I do love the new swipe keyboard. That's one of the things about the S10 Plus and Android in general that I've always loved. I know you can install Gboard on iPhones, but you also lose dictation ability. So I didn't really like using third-party keyboards on the iPhone because if you're driving in the car and you want to do some dictation, I didn't want to have to switch keyboards in order to do that. So I kept that stock keyboard, but I think the swipe keyboard is pretty accurate. I'm sure they're going to improve it in software updates. On a negative side, I do miss 3D touch. The haptic touch is good, but 3D touch was, I think, really innovative and different. And also, in particular on the keyboard, where you're able to push down on the keyboard when you had 3D touch and kind of trace around like it was a cursor. You can still do that using haptic touch, but you have to push down on the space bar and there's a little bit of a delay, and then you can drag around. It's not as clean and crisp as the 3D touch. It's still there, but it is a little bit of a downgrade. I don't know if there's a difference between iOS 13 running on older iPhones versus the newer iPhone 11s, but I haven't really experienced a ton of bugs really at all. But I know there are, and they're out there. You can see them all over Twitter. But this is all going to be fixed in iOS 13.1, and that is going to be released on September 30th. This really does make all the improvements that you would ever expect and should actually have shipped with the original iPhone 11 with iOS 13, but that's neither here nor there. They just wanted to get it out, and so they did, but unfortunately, bugs came with it. So what's my overall first impressions of the iPhone 11 Pro Max? I think top to bottom, this phone is an absolute winner. I think it's one of the most complete smartphones I've ever used, whether it's battery life, camera capabilities, screen quality, build quality, you name it, this thing checks all the boxes. And I know it's only been about 24 hours of actually using this thing, but first impressions do matter. And this phone makes one hell of a great first impression. So if you like what you saw and you want to see more, please consider subscribing. Obviously, this is just a first impressions video. I think the full iPhone 11 Pro Max review will come probably sometime in the next 2 weeks. And it'll also be my first ever full phone review. You're going to want to be a part of history, right? But enough about what I think. What do you guys think? Did you guys pick up the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 11 Pro? Are you going to upgrade? Are you staying put? Are you on Android and you think all this hype about the iPhone is absolutely crazy and, you know, Pixel had night mode first? Well, welcome to the party, pal, right? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm always interested in whatever you have to say. I'd love to get back to you on that, get into a conversation. We're all tech enthusiasts, so I think that kind of back and forth banter, I always look forward to it. I hope you do too. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.